Hello, everyone. Welcome to the monthly, I hope I can keep it monthly, Q&A supporter podcast thing that I do, where if you support the channel in any way, shape, or form, whether that's like you donated to me once on Coffee and you have your Discord linked to that thing, or Patreon, or the YouTube memberships, or whatever, you get to a members area on the Discord where you can ask questions, and then I'll do a monthly QA thing, podcast stuff, where I answer them. And we have a lot of questions this time around, a bunch of them, so let's try and see if we can't get through them in a reasonable amount of time. Starting with Cleansing Soaps, who asks, have you any experience with the Pathologic game series? I feel like they would be right up your alley. I think I just have to disagree with you there, Cleansing Soaps, in a sense. I'm familiar with Pathologic primarily through the many video essays that have been made about Pathologic. Like 8Bomber guys and like a bunch of smaller YouTubers that I follow have made essays about the Pathologic series and the many interesting things that series does. And you're right that it would be right up my alley in the sense of if I wanted to do some analytical content or a playthrough of it, like where I sort of analyze in between, I could probably do a good one. I could probably do a good playthrough of Pathologic where I get a lot of interesting sort of artistic thematic meat out of the story and out of the way that game is put together, sure. But I also know enough of having watched enough Pathologic gameplay and knowing enough about the game that I wouldn't enjoy playing it for fun. And I don't think I would play it except for the purposes either of like making videos about it or for the purposes of like specifically sitting down to say, okay, I'm going to have myself an interesting artistic media experience with a game, right? I don't think it's a game that I would play for pleasure. And given how little gaming time I kind of have to myself these days, I don't know that I would choose to spend my time on Pathologic, frankly. It's not a fun game in the traditional sense. It's not a pleasant game to play. It's like designed to be kind of hostile and kind of punishing and brutal and unrelenting. And that's cool. Like, that's all stuff that's cool about it, but it would make it something I wouldn't play for the fun of it. I'd rather watch a playthrough or something like that, I think. Leviathan, if you had to go on a cross-country road trip, oh no, in a small, uncomfortable, unventilated car, no, with no radio and no phone, good lord, which three, and it has to be three fictional characters, would you go on this? I wouldn't, no, I wouldn't. No, can we fly? No, I'm not going across country, no, absolutely not. The Three Stooges, Leviathan, I would choose the Three Stooges specifically because I could run away from them, and they would get stuck in a door poking each other's eyes out, and they wouldn't be able to drag me on this fucking road trip. No, absolutely not. Are you crazy? No, no, not doing that. Holy shit. Error Zero. Have you ever read The Lies of Locke Amora by Scott Lynch? If so, do you have any thoughts on the world? No, I have not read it, and unfortunately, as such, I can't really answer your question there, Error Zero, sorry. Suavest Orange, if you had to go into witness protection and couldn't keep your name but got to choose your new name, then what given middle and family name would you choose for yourself? I feel like I should talk to my handler before I answer this question. Excuse me, I need to call the FBI just a second. I mean, if I had to go into witness protection, I would choose a name that is deliberate, like, that is not so boring as to be obvious, like not John Smith or John Doe or whatever, like nothing so generic that it's kind of obvious, but also nothing that was remotely interesting, like Peter Johnson or, I don't know, like Robert something. Like, just something that's fucking... I can't even think of boring names, because everything I think of sounds too interesting. I just choose as the most boring name I possibly could that wasn't conspicuously boring, and just nondescript, like, oh, this is just some fucking, I don't know, wasp or whatever that no one wants to think about or care about. Because I wouldn't want to be findable. I would want, if someone looked me up in the phone book, I want them to... People don't have phone books anymore, but if someone looked me up in like a phone directory, I would want them to get like 5,000 different phone numbers and addresses. Like, I'd want to disappear. Wired, what kind of story appeals to you most? Or rather, what kind of tropes do you like seeing, if that's any easier? That's a tough one, because I don't... Like, for me, it's less about... Like, it's less about what is the trope that's being played and more about, like, how is it being played? Like, is it being played well? Is something interesting being done with it? And that's really sort of like, that depends on execution fully, because like any trope can be good or bad if you play it right or wrong. So I feel like what you're asking about is like whether I have like enemies to lovers, sort of the traditional fanfic one, or like noble sacrifice or whatever. And it all depends on the context. It all depends on how the trope is executed. I don't think I have a preference for any particular trope. Like, I'll give you, I mean, I kind of don't want to give you this example, but I'm gonna. Chosen One narratives, right? Like, Chosen One narratives have some inherent problematic flaws to them, which is that a Chosen One narrative is kind of often predicated on the idea that some people are just better than others, right? Like, some people are just born with special destinies and special powers, and they're born with inherently superior qualities to other people that make them uniquely suited to solve the problems of our world, right? Like, that's sort of inherent to the Chosen One trope if you're not careful. And so for me, I don't really care so much about a Chosen One trope, but I care if the Chosen One trope is executed critically and like with some careful thinking about it. And this is the example I don't want to give, but which I'm gonna anyway, because, well, the Harry Potter series actually does an interesting thing with this. Not necessarily, like, good lord, that series has its problems, let's not get that wrong, but like, one of the interesting things that the Harry Potter series actually does attempt to do with the Chosen One narrative is that Harry isn't the Chosen One because of any kind of fate or destiny or whatever. He's the Chosen One because Voldemort turned him into that. Like, when Voldemort kills his parents and tries to kill him, he turns Harry into a Chosen One. Not because there's anything special about Harry whatsoever, but because he decides to empower, like, to create the conditions that cause a Chosen One to appear, right? And it's sort of a little bit all of the, in terms of like predestination and predetermination and how much that plays into Voldemort. Like the thing that the series tries to get at is that evil sows the seeds of its own destruction, right? That a Chosen One emerges not because there are special people who are predestined to be good or be better than others, but because when someone like Voldemort arises, like a fascist like him, he creates the conditions for a hell of a lot of people to be born who have very good reason to want to destroy him, right? That was something like, and again, Harry Potter doesn't execute on this thematic at all perfectly, and it has some other problems, not the least among, like, don't buy Harry Potter books because you think this sounds interesting. Don't do that. Don't give her any money ever. Fuck her. She's an asshole, complete piece of shit. But, like, it's a series that sort of tried to do something interesting with it. Compare and contrast with Lord of the Rings, where in Tolkien's version, Aragorn is just kind of born better, because he's a descendant of Numenor, he's the rightful king of Gondor, and so he's gonna, like, he wins, because he's the rightful descendant of, like, the Lord of the Rings fully believes in the blood right of kings, right? In a way that again, that's problematic. I don't agree with the blood right of kings at all. I think that's a very bad idea, and we shouldn't do that. In fact, nobody should ever be royals or monarchs, but I really like Lord of the Rings still, because I find Aragorn's story compelling, even if I like, deeply and fundamentally disagree with the political views that underpin it. Right? You see what I mean? So it's less about whether the trope is good or bad. It's about the context, how it's executed, whether it leads to compelling characters, whether it leads to an interesting narrative. Because, like, even though Harry Potter does an interesting thing with the Chosen One narrative, I still fucking hate those books now because of the author. Because of what she has done to tar those books in my mind. Those were formative for me. Like, they are important books to me, but fuck them and fuck her. Forever. And also the anti-Semitism and the slave, like, being opposed to slavery is cringe bullshit with Hermione and SPEW. Like, no, fuck off, Joanne, with all of your bullshit. But the point I was trying to make with all of this is I care less about the tropes. I care more about how the story around the tropes is executed. Miggy likes Siggy. What's some design tropes and characters and monsters you like? Like when you see it in the character design, it makes you think, ooh, they did the thing. Changed it from a favorite question to something a little easier to answer. Thank you, because I can't answer favorites questions, famously. And I think my answer to that is ugliness. And specifically in terms of, ugliness and beauty are loaded terms, very loaded terms. So what I'm talking about here is specifically conventional beauty, conventional ugliness, right? Like, we all have sort of a sense of what a conventional beauty standard is, and we all have a sense of what a conventional standard of ugliness is, right? And those traits are tools that you can use in character design. You can make a character conventionally beautiful, conventionally ugly, in order to change the storytelling of the character to force the audience to relate to them in one certain way. And going back to Tolkien, the way Tolkien uses it in his character design is that the elves are fair and beautiful. Floating through the woods, we're the elves. We're beautiful and shining. Like, that's the elves, right? Like, they're sort of these gorgeous, otherworldly beauties that exist almost outside of time and space itself, and like sort of float on a cloud of their own farts or whatever, because they're just like, they're so perfect and wonderful, and everyone loves them, and they're so beautiful, and so on. And contrasted with that, the orcs and the Uruk-hai. The orcs specifically, I believe, being a corrupted version of the elves created by Morgoth, because he became jealous of Eru Ilúvatar's creation. And the orcs are hideous and ugly, and they live underground, and they can't be in the sun, and they're like filthy and disgusting. Fucking the orcs, man flesh, right? That is a form of beauty as politics, where Tolkien is using beauty and ugliness as means to denote moral character of the characters in his story, right? And going again, that's one of the problematic critiques of Tolkien, is that he does that very uncritically, that everyone who's good has a tendency to be in some way like conventionally beautiful, and those who are antagonists and evil have a tendency to be ugly. He also does push back on this a little. It's more complicated than that with Tolkien. Like, specifically Sauron, one of the ways that he used to exert power over the world is that he appeared before people as the Lord of Gifts, Anatar. And he was beautiful and absolutely charming and guiling and appealing and gorgeous, like just the most gorgeous fucking man. Everyone wanted to bang him, and everyone wanted to have his gifts because he was so charming and beautiful and pretty. That was part of how he built his power in the Second Age, particularly. And so Tolkien also has like a critical relationship to beauty as goodness, like that beauty is a tool that is used by evil to build its power, right? Like that evil often comes with a beautiful face, and that's something that he also that also comes up with Aragorn, who's not described as a particularly beautiful person. Like he does get to be handsome at various points in the story, but when Frodo, Sam, and Merry and Pippin meet him in the Prancing Pony, he's like described as a sort of fairly like scowly, dark, like sort of unpleasant, unsavory looking type of the sort that you'd think would slit your throat to steal your wallet kind of thing, where Frodo observes that if he was evil, he would probably look fairer and feel fouler. Like, he would probably look nicer, but be more unpleasant. So Tolkien also engages with the politics of beauty around that, but it's like, it's one of those things in character design, right? And what I like is when a character design uses those things critically. Like, when it's critical about whether the character should be beautiful or ugly, because it's trying to elicit something from the audience. Like, it's trying to manipulate or shape the way that the audience engages with the character. Evelyn from League of Legends is a good example. She kind of needs to be pretty, and she needs to be pretty in specifically a very seductive way, because that's what she does. Like, that's how she enacts her desires in the world. Right, and comparatively, if you watch the Boss Descent of Bloodborne, when I get to Erden Chapel for the first time and I encounter the little weird dude who's sitting there, who's like, oh, if you find someone out there, why don't you send them here to Erden Chapel? I'll take care of them. Yeah. Like, he's sort of weird, and he has a strange voice, and he has these grasping, long-fingered hands, and he looked kind of withered and ugly. And my immediate reaction upon him is like, oh, if I send someone here, he's going to fucking eat them. Like, he's going to kill them because this is Bloodborne, this is a horror game, he looks ugly, he looks like a monster, therefore he's evil. No, turns out he's good. He's a good character. He's someone who actually does protect people, and if you send people to Erden Chapel, they have a chance of surviving the night, because he does try to protect them and take care of them, because he is good. And that's like, that's cool to me, is that FromSoft character designers manipulated my ass hard. Like, they hard manipulated my ass with that character, like completely forced me to engage with beauty as like the concept of beauty as goodness, which is a bias, by the way, we all have, all of us, every single time it's been studied, all of us, every single one, from judges to cops, which is a big problem, to like the shopkeeper who's like sitting in like the cashier at the supermarket. Everyone treats beautiful people better just because they're beautiful, and we associate beauty with goodness on what seems to be almost an instinctual level, right? And I like character design that engages with that, like that engages critically with that and uses it to form a character and manipulate the audience's response to them. I like that. League of Legends is one of those games that doesn't do that very much anymore. It used to. Like, it used to have characters like Urgot, who was explicitly ugly and was supposed to be ugly. He was like this horrible sack of flesh on spider legs that was just unappealing and disgusting and gross and like running around with like his little arm cannon and shit. Like, he was very much designed to be disgusting. When he got his update, you can see the change in aesthetic that League of Legends has, because now he's banned from League of Legends. Oh, you think the top lane is your ally. I was born and it molded by... Like, he's League of Legends Bane with the mask, and he's got the badass scar tattoos, and he's like jacked as fuck, like bald and dangerous and cool looking with his arm cannon and his like mecha body and like all that shit. He's become appealing. Like, ugliness has been shifted out of him and turned into being badass, being cool, which is a different thing. And that's one of my disappointments with League of Legends, is that because it is so much about selling power fantasies to the audience, and because the audience has such a bias against ugliness in general, that everything is being shifted to be just pretty, or be just badass, or be just cool, or be just like something that feels empowering, because we are so... As a culture... And I mean that on a global level, as a culture, we are so fucking scared of being ugly. Even though, realistically speaking, most of us fucking are. Like, we all know what a conventional beauty standard is. We all know what a conventional ugliness standard is. None of us. Like, and I do mean fucking none of us, when there isn't Photoshop and a lot of makeup and good lighting and careful costuming decisions and posing, none of us live up to the beauty standards. We are all ugly in some way or another. That's just a fact of being fucking human. And so I veered into a bit of a rant there, like about how, oh, the world today is getting worse. But I do worry about just how much the pervasiveness of beauty as standard is bad for our culture. And that's not League of Legends' fault, by the way, but that's culture in general as a whole system privileges beauty so much and punishes ugliness so badly. I think it leads to some ugly things. Ironically, some very ugly tendencies in human beings. So I like ugliness in character design. I like when it's deployed, when it's used, when it forces people to confront how they think and feel about beauty. That was a long answer. Vega, are there any Pokemon evolution lines you particularly really like? This is kind of a favorites question, but since you don't have favorites, I'm trying to give you wiggle room to talk just about evolution lines you like and why you like them, if that makes sense. Sure. You're kind of asking me to spoil Pokemon shorts for the Shorts channel, though, which I don't want to... Or I'm sort of debating whether to answer about a future Pokemon I haven't covered yet, or... Well, actually, no, a good example, Pidgey. The Pidgey line, Pidgeotto, Pidgeot, is one of my favorite, like, design lines, like, as a whole line in the Pokemon franchise. Not in the sense that I think it's particularly groundbreaking or innovative or anything, but because it's just so damn well put together. You start with Pidgey, which is this scrappy little, looks like a juvenile bird, essentially. It's scrappy, it has like its feathers a little bit sort of rough. It looks like something that lives in the underbrush of a forest and like picks up seeds off the ground and whatever and scatters the moment something comes near. Like, it looks like a little nervous sort of songbird kind of thing. Then you get up to Pidgeotto, which is like, oh, okay, this looks like a sparrowhawk or something. Like, the proportions are a little bit lengthened, like it gets this crest on its head, looks more cool, looks more badass, looks more capable and dangerous. And then you get to Pidgeot, which is when it fully transitions into, this is a fucking peak apex predator of a thing, like with this long crest that streamlines and makes it aerodynamic. The body gets longer, the tail feathers get longer and more beautiful, and it just looks like it can fly at Mach 3, right? Like, it looks like a thing that just absolutely slices through the air and like strikes from above and kills things and like is dangerous and cool. And it's just such a good smooth evolution line because it really does look like a bird that is going from juvenile to adult, and it's like a really smooth, strong evolution line. I really like that one. Angius, do you intend on doing boss design series outside of FromSoft series once you're done with your current plans? Okay, yeah. So the answer there is no, because you asked me if I intend to. And no, I do not. Like, I have no intent whatsoever beyond what I've already committed to, because I haven't quite finished Bloodborne yet. I still need to do many meanings of Bloodborne, which is a video that's turned out to be a nightmare to try and put together, but which I want to have it out by the end of the year. God damn it. Somehow. And after... and I need to get back to Elden Ring. It's been months of hiatus from that because of just things have happened. I need to get back to Elden Ring. After Elden Ring, I want to do Dark Souls 3. And after Dark Souls 3, I want to do Demon Souls. So we're talking, by the time I'm done with all of that, it's like it'll be 4 years from now at least, I think. Like, it's gonna be a while. Elden Ring is a huge fucking game. It's gonna be a while before we get there. And so I have no intent on committing to absolutely, like, I don't know what the world looks like. I don't know if Europe is still here in that amount of, like, who knows what the fuck Putin is doing with his nuclear weapons. I don't know. I'm not committing to any goddamn thing beyond what I've committed to already. I don't even know if I'm going to have a YouTube channel by that point. Who knows? YouTube could crash and burn. So no intent. If you're asking whether I've considered other game series, whether they could be viable for a boss design series, yes, I have thought about that. The thing about boss designs is that it's a series that I didn't mean to make. I didn't really mean to create it. I just like, okay, I'm going to fight that first Dark Souls boss, and I'm going to try and analyze their character design while I'm fighting them, and maybe that would make for an interesting video. And then I went and fought the second Dark Souls boss, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth. And like, if you watch those early boss designs videos, you can see the format of boss designs of Dark Souls growing up around me doing that. Like, I developed the format specifically in response to Dark Souls, right? And that format maps really well onto other FromSoft games because they have a similar style of format there that for it to map onto, but it also means that it's a series that's bespoke for Souls games and like Bloodborne and so on. It's bespoke for that style of game design because the bosses in FromSoft games have so much to say about the world, about the character, like, about the lore, about the themes of those games. And that's not necessarily true for a lot of other game series. I've thought about Metroid, like that Metroid, maybe some of the Metroid games, possibly you could try and do something boss designs-esque there. Like, Super Metroid in particular seems like it might be a possible candidate. Maybe the Prime games, I've never played them, so I don't know. I've also thought about Resident Evil Village. Seems like, because it has that same structure where the whole game is structured around its bosses, right? Like, it's structured around Dimitrescu, Heisenberg, the dollhouse mother, whatever her name is. It's structured around those boss encounters, and like they all have their own individual areas that sort of have their own sort of thematic heft. Maybe Silent Hill, at least the good ones, would be something you could possibly do this around. But again, 4 or 5 years into the future, I'm not committing to anything. And probably the answer is I'm going to have to develop a new format. Maybe adapt some parts of boss designs to it, but the answer is, like, if I'm going to cover a different game series, I'm probably going to need a different format for it, because this format was designed for Souls games. Vega, second question from me. How do you feel about being a source of comfort for people? On the extra side, how do you feel about having simps? Does that weird you out, or are you embracing it? Oh, Well, there's an emotionally complicated question. I'll start with, like, I like being a source of comfort for people. Like, YouTube, like, this whole thing that I'm doing is fairly frivolous in the grand scheme of things. Like there's no, if I stop making YouTube videos, no one's lives are going to be that much materially affected. Like, maybe people will miss it. Like, people, I like watching his videos or whatever. But it's like, there's no industry that's going to collapse. No part of the economy is going to stop functioning because I'm not making YouTube videos anymore. I am, the work I do is ultimately kind of disposable in the way that a lot of entertainment products ultimately are. And I'm fine with that. And so being a source of comfort for people, is something that I'm very pleased about that, actually. Like, I'm happy, because that means that my videos are, like, they are something other than self-indulgence from me, right? Like, there's something other than just me blabbering on about the fucking video games I like or whatever for money on the internet. Like, if they provide comfort or some source of joy, or is in some way helpful to people, absolutely. I'm pleased with that. I'm very happy with that, because it means I am doing more than just sort of sitting here jerking off, right? I'm having some kind of small positive impact on the world, and I'm very happy about that. On the subject of having simps, though, it's there's two things there. Okay, Yeah, okay, so there is or was a Twitter account at one point, which was called something like TB Skyn is Daddy, like something like that, like some kind of very simpish name and account thing that's sort of, for a little, I think it's a couple of years ago now, for a little while, was kind of responding to everything I was saying, like, oh my god, so true, King, and like, oh, you're so hot, daddy, like, oh, I love you, like, that kind of thing, like, was really sort of, and I don't know what the creator behind that, like, what they were doing, like, whether they were being in any way serious or whether they were just fucking trying to meme on me, in which case, mission accomplished, my friend, good trolling job, I do salute you on that one, you freaked me the fuck out, good job on that, I don't know what their intent was with it, but it did worry me, because I also saw them respond to accounts that were like talking shit about me, or like who didn't like my videos or whatever, and being shitty at them. And that's something I've seen, like, occasionally, that people will sort of try to defend me online. And that's, like, you're certainly allowed to have an opinion about my work and defend it. Like, say, no, I like it, and I like it because so-and-so, but I don't want to be the kind of creator where someone has to watch their mouth in case my fan base comes after them. Please do not do that. I promise you, it is not important to defend me from randos on twitter.com. It really, truly, genuinely isn't. Like, again, you're allowed to have opinions about my work. You're allowed to express them. You're allowed to discuss it with people. Like, if someone doesn't like my videos, you can say, no, I like this stuff about them, or I think you're wrong about that, or I think you're misinterpreting this thing he said. That's fine. Just, it's that complicated thing of, like, I don't mind having fans, but I don't want to have stans, right? Like, don't stan me ever, please. Do not do that. No one should have stans. And I include BTS in that comment. No one should have stans. No human being on Earth. No fictional character. No one should have stans. It's a toxic mode of being. It's bad. Don't do it. And I will die on that hill. So like that, I don't want stans. Simps is like I knew what I was doing when I made the Viego video, you know? Like, when I was like, he's a monster, but he's a monster who loves you. Like, I know what I'm doing. Like, I was trying to elicit a reaction. I was trying to sort of mimic the style of, like romantic erotic audio or whatever, right? Like, in the same way, like, I was trying to do that. And some people find my voice sexy, and I enjoy that very much. That's very fun. I enjoy being able to have that effect on people. I find it flattering. Who wouldn't? So I do play into that. I do that on purpose. And I don't, because I am cis and white, I have the privilege that people sexualizing me is not a threat. I don't feel threatened by that. It's not dangerous to me in the way that it would be for a trans person or for a woman or for literally anyone of any marginalized identity. It's not dangerous to me in that same way. I get the privilege of just being able to enjoy that. And I do. So I don't mind if people find my voice sexy. I don't mind if people mildly sexualize me or go, oh my god, that voice like does things to me. That's fine. No problem with that whatsoever. It's that thing of... It's the stage principle, right? Like, you know, when you go to a show, and let's say it's a burlesque, right? And there's a performer on stage, they're fucking giving their all, like, they're just shaking that ass, they're dancing, they're singing, they're twirling the tassels on their nipples, and it's like the fucking coolest, hottest, most badass thing you've ever seen in your life, and you're freaking the fuck out about it. That's fine. That's cool. That's good. The performer wants you to do that. They want you to look at them and like be turned on or be entertained and have fun and enjoy themselves. They don't want you to rush up on stage and kiss them. Right? Like, they don't want you to like reach out and touch them in a way that they haven't consented to. They don't want you to break the barrier of the stage, right? Like, the understanding that it is all a performance, so long as that understanding is there, so long as the fourth wall is maintained, it's fine. It's completely fine. And I kind of feel that way, right? So long as we all understand that what I am giving you here right now, as I'm talking, even though this sounds like a conversational talkie podcast, even if you watch my vlogs, the only thing you ever get from me online is a performance. Ever. And if I ever met you in real life and you're like, oh, I'm a huge fan, immediately I would put the TB Skyn performance on. I wouldn't even mean to, but I would. It would be, hello, like succulents and simps. My name is TB Skyn, and welcome to. That voice is a performance. My voice right now is a performance. I don't talk like this necessarily in real life. This podcast conversational voice is closer to my normal talking voice, but it's not my normal talking voice. I'm putting it on. I don't know how to not put it on, because it's the kind of like... It's the diction and the accent and the affect and the performance that's necessary to make content, right? And so it's about Are we all respecting the boundary of the stage? Are we all understanding that TB Skyen, the online YouTube content creator, is a performance that you enjoy, not a person that you know? Fine. Everything's cool. You can simp, you can have your fun, you can enjoy it, you can sexualize me if you want. You don't have to. Like, nobody has to find me attractive ever. That is not a priority for me. But if you want to do it, and if it's enjoyable for you, and if it's fun, and everyone is just having a good time with it, it's completely fine. Just don't break the barrier, right? That's the thing. So it like, anyone who violates the boundary, anyone who violates that barrier, anyone who takes it too far into the personal, that weirds me out. I don't want that, and I will push back on you pretty... I've decided to be pretty brutal about it in telling people to get the fuck away from me if they do that. So long as we respect the boundary, you can have all of the horny, thirsty fun you want if that's what you want to do. That's fine. Yeah, complicated feelings about that, right? It's not an easy subject. Cheese, now that the Elden Ring has been out for a few months, you've obviously seen images of Malenia's character design. Yeah, I've been retweeting fan art of her, even if you weren't seeking out spoilers. Thoughts on it? Sort of. Sorry. I have seen Malenia's character design. I've seen the boss fight. Like, I've seen Let Me Solo her, kick her ass without taking a single hit. But I don't know the context of her yet. Like, I haven't been through playing the game, going through the area that leads up to her, looking at all the lore and the character design and the world building that leads up to who Malenia is and what she's about. I don't know how she relates to the Elden Ring world, so I don't really have any formed, strong thoughts or opinions on her yet. Like, I think it's interesting that when she shifts into, I don't know, is it her third phase or whatever, when she gets naked and grows wings, that she is kind of genderless, like, or at least very sort of androgynous. She's not very hyper feminine. Like that there is sort of a gender ambiguity there. I think that's interesting. I think Elden Ring plays with some gender ideas in some, like, specifically, like, the gender of the gods seems to be something that's actually kind of important to the game. But again, I don't know the context. Like, I can't put it into a context where I develop a strong thought on it, except that she's striking and cool. Like, I saw Malenia's character design in the trailers, you know? It's not like Malenia's character design was especially a spoiler. She was there in the trailers. So, yeah. Did you see the Rise of the TMNT movie? If you did, what did you think of both it and animation story? Think of it both animation story-wise. I have not seen the movie, no. It's one of those things that, like, oh, I should watch that, and then it got put in the backlog, and then it's been months, and I haven't done it yet, and that's probably where it's gonna stay, realistically speaking. But if you want to ask me about Rise of the TMNT, who the fuck is satisfied with Dragon Ball Super? I don't understand. Like, if the thing you like about Dragon Ball is the hype fights and, like, the cool like the fucking anime action shit that happened, how are you satisfied with Dragon Ball Super when Rise of the TMNT is right there? Like, have you seen the way they animate action in that show? The way that I've seen the clips from the movie, the way they animate action in that fucking movie. Have you seen that shit? Have you seen it? Have you spent 2 seconds? How can you be satisfied with any middle of, like, fucking My Hero Academia, go to bed? How are you satisfied with any shonen ever when Rise of the TMNT is right there? How are you satisfied with that? I don't know. It's just, it is some of the most exciting, vital, amazing action animation that anyone has been creating in the past 10 years. And if that's what you're into, if that's what you like, fucking go get it, because holy shit, have you, like, oh my god. And the reason why I have not made any more videos about Rise of the TMNT is primarily, honestly, because the first time I did that, I got a really nasty copyright strike that took a very long time to resolve. And the video didn't do any numbers whatsoever because of that. So it's like, it's something I can't really make content about, which pains me, because holy shit. But no, I haven't seen the movie yet. Vega, oh, hello again. There's a TMNT channel on the server. Does that mean you play, or are you just providing your nerd children with entertainment? If you do, what do you play? What kind of colors and decks? So I played Magic the Gathering many years ago. when I had a friend group in school whomst I could play with. And back then I played green, exclusively green cards, because I want to make a big thing with big numbers on it, and then I want to throw that big thing with big numbers on it at your face, and then you die. That's the playstyle I like in these games. That's also how I play Legends of Runeterra generally. So that's the kind of style that I usually play. But I haven't played Magic the Gathering in many years. I have a starter deck that I bought like 6 years ago. I don't know if that's even... Are there banned cards in there? Hell if I know. So I haven't played Magic in many, many, many years. So it's mostly there for you guys. But I did used to play. Manti, this is a very long-term question, but after Elden Ring and Dark Souls 3... Okay, we've actually kind of already answered that one, haven't we? So yeah, I think I've answered that one, Manti. Back at the very start of this, I think. Why in particular did you choose the Kirby symbol, Kirby as symbol for the supporter roles? That's on my Discord, Rosen Knight asks. I can imagine some reasons, but I'm curious. I don't know, whatever reason you're imagining is probably more interesting than the real reason, which is that I was lazy. In terms of I had to create these supporter roles, right? Like I had to create a graphic that sort of denoted various levels of being a supporter of my work, and I was like fuck, what do we do there? Like the traditional one is like a sprouting plant, right? Like that's sort of the obvious one that a lot of people that the sort of a lot of websites use as default. Is like you start with a seed, and then it's a little plant, and then it's a flower, and then it's a tree or whatever for each level of supporter that someone is. And for me, it was like, oh, okay, Kurt, what's an easy fucking way to do that I don't have to spend like several hours painting or whatever? It's like, oh, right, Kirby, because Kirby is pretty easy. First you draw a circle, then you dot the eyes, then a great big smile, and presto, that's Kirby. So I could do a circle, I could put some eyes on it, and then like some legs and some arms, and then some colors, and then a little crown, and then that could be the various levels of support. Good, easy, ship that, don't care about it. I meant to maybe go back and do something different, and then I just never did. So it's laziness. It's because it was an easy, quick idea that came to me fast at a point when I just needed to get this shit out of the way so that I could work on other things. Sorry if I spoiled some of your more interesting ideas there. Vega, you've mentioned that you play a good deal of instruments. Do you think you'll ever post yourself playing any on the second channel? Or is that one of the hobbies you'd rather not monetize? Vega, again. I have posted some videos on here. I think they're pretty old at this point, but they're there in the music playlist if you want to go look at them. Mostly the reason why I don't record me playing instruments is that I don't have a good recording setup for playing instruments. Like most of my instruments are acoustic. And recording something like that is a pain in the ass and a half. Like, especially when I want to play and sing at the same time. Like, you need a microphone that picks up the guitar, or you need a acoustic guitar with a pickup in it. You need a way to record your voice in a way that like you don't have to in a way that you can sing naturally while you're playing. And like it's a whole fucking mess of a thing. Like to set up, if I wanted to sit down and just record a quick song, it would be way too much fucking hassle and difficulty to set up multiple microphones and like try and capture. So that's the main reason why. It's just it's not easy and convenient, and therefore I haven't done it, because it's not that it's not something I would monetize. If I could get paid to sing and play music, I'd be happy to do that as well. It's more that it's just a lot of work and effort, and it's not really what my content is about. Like, no one really comes to my channel like because of he's the guy who does the music songs. I'd have to build an audience like that, and that's like, I'm sorry, man. So that's the main reason. Again, laziness. I don't want to put in the effort to set up a good recording, and if I'm not doing a good recording, I'm going to be annoyed listening to it, so that's why. Isa, have you seen Cyberpunk Edge Runners? No, I have not, so I have no opinion on it. Do you consider yourself a good person? Oh, well, here's another emotionally fraught question. I consider myself a person who's capable of doing good, I think, is the answer to that one. Yeah. I consider myself someone who's capable of doing good. I don't necessarily consider myself a good person. And it's partly because I think it's that thing about, like, in terms of when you think about ethics and morality as something that you are, rather than something that you do. And I think of ethics and morality as something that you do. It's how you treat people. It's what you try to do in the world is that. And I think if you think of yourself as being a good person, as like goodness being inherent to the nature of your soul or whatever, that leads to a trap where you think, I am a good person, therefore I'm always trying to do good, And therefore, all of my actions are in some way justified because I was trying to do good. I was trying to do the right thing. I wanted to do the right thing, and I'm a good person, and therefore, like, if I do wrong, like, you can't say that I did something wrong because then you're saying that I am an evil person. And evil is something that because you're saying my actions are evil, that means I am evil, and that's a statement about my being, and that's a personal attack, and therefore I'm going to be unwilling to listen to anything you say about, like, the impact that my actions might have had. Like, that's the trap, I think, that comes from thinking of yourself as good, is that it turns the questions of the impact of your actions into questions about the nature of your soul and your intent, and like your feelings about who you are and what you want to do in the world, rather than the reality of what your actions accomplish. And I'm wary of doing that because, and it's also partly because, like, I'm a fucking cis white middle class dude, right? I am subject to so many biases and so many privileges that blind me to so many toxic behaviors that I may engage, like, so many of them that I've become aware of. I didn't used to be someone who I would have liked to hang around. Like, the way that I used to behave is someone that now I wouldn't want to be near when I was a younger man. And if I were to think of myself as good, I would have to justify the behaviors that I engaged in back then in some way. I'd have to say, no, it's okay, because I was trying my best to learn to be a better person, and that means it's like, no, I was being a shithead. I was an asshole. I was cruel to people. I did cruel things to people. I spoke in cruel ways about people. I held cruel beliefs about people. And that's not, I have undone a lot of that now in myself, but that doesn't mean I wasn't doing it back then. Like, that, the impact of those actions is still out in the world. I know that for a fact, that my actions have impacted people in negative ways. And that doesn't go away just because I happen to be a good person on the inside. It's something you have to reckon with. So, yeah, I mean, that's a philosophically complicated question you're asking me there, Isa, I'm afraid. And I try to consider myself someone who's capable of doing good. If I want to, if I remember to be conscientious and thoughtful, I can do good, is how I think about it. Yeah. Sorry for the weird answer to that question. What is something you wish more people knew about when it comes to art and animation? Two things. First of all, the craft. It's like when animation and art is really, really good, it looks effortless. Like, it looks so natural. It looks like so much like, oh yeah, that's just what it looks like, right? Like when you watch a movie and the rendering of the light and like the color theory of how the light interacts with objects is good. You look at that and go, oh yeah, okay, that's what light looks like. That's fine. You sort of, you tune it out. You don't consider it. You don't think about it at all. Because that's just what subsurface scattering looks like. That's just what reflections look like. That's just what water shimmering in the light looks like. But it's all craft. Like, every part of how something like that looks, at some point or another, is someone making a decision. Right? Whether that's a decision about using the default rendering mode of the engine, or whether it's a decision about, like, creating something bespoke, every part of something that you see in art and animation, every pixel, every screen space reflection, every bit of pore on a 3D model, every movement of the hair, it's all decisions. Even when you're using, like, for hair physics, for example, like when you're using a physics engine to calculate how hair would move under a certain condition, that's a decision. Someone has to decide to use that physics engine. They have to decide to apply those motion aesthetics to the thing, right? And that's something I kind of try to surface in the way that I do content, especially about animation, is that all of it, every part of it is a decision. It's a choice. All of it is. Someone is responsible for choosing every single bit of it. And that's both to instill a sense of awe in the audience that I bring that up, like that people should be in awe of that, because it's fucking awesome. It's incredible. It's a miracle that something like animation can exist. Like it's a miracle of human creativity, but also to help make it clear to the audience that every part of art is available for critique and criticism. Like when the screen space reflections in a video game look good, that's something that's open to critique. Like that's open to discussion. It's open to consideration. And critique doesn't necessarily mean negative criticism. It can also be positive criticism. It can also be praise, right? It's something that's open to consideration and critical thinking, because it was all a decision. All of it was a choice and decision. None of it just emerges naturally out of thin air and just exists because, oh, that's just what it's supposed to look like. No, it looks like that because someone made it that way. That's one of the things that I sort of try and get across in the way that I make videos. Any thoughts, says Jampire, on comparing different card games' art, especially the use of framing, since all cards have an in-game frame? Side note, opinions on trading card games. I mean, for a little while there, I wanted to do a comparison video between the art of Hearthstone cards and the art of Legends of Runeterra cards. Mostly because Hearthstone cards are bad. Or at least they used to be. Like especially early on in the game's lifespan, Hearthstone cards were kind of crap in terms of the art that they used. Mostly because so many of the art assets were recycled bits of concept art and promotional art from all kinds of other Warcraft-related things. Like, it was just a game where, like, let's grab all these fucking JPEGs we have lying around and put some stats on them, and now we're making a card game out of it. And that's fine. Like, that's part of how Hearthstone got made, I believe. But it also means that a lot of the art assets that they used were inconsistent in quality at the best of times, and sometimes just downright fucking hideous. And badly composed and not at all fit for the purpose, because they weren't, not fit for the purpose because they weren't made to be card art. They weren't made to be that. And Legends of Runeterra is interesting because it was designed from the ground up. Like, every single goddamn card in that game, all of them, were designed specifically to be art pieces that were connected to the League of Legends universe, to storytelling, to Runeterra as a world. They are so bespoke. And the quality of artwork in Legends of Runeterra is so far beyond something like Hearthstone. Desperately, in terms of their cohesion, in terms of how it's put together. Legends of Runeterra is another one of those games that's kind of a miracle when you look at all the art that went into it and how well that's all composed and fit together and just how beautiful so much of it is. So yeah, I considered doing that for a while, but then I don't want to give coverage to Blizzard games these days, just because it makes me feel bad inside. And also, I fell out of love with Hearthstone really hard when Legends of Runeterra dropped, because it's a much better game. So yeah. But yeah, and if you're talking about trading card games in general, I don't have any strong overall opinion, except that the monetization model for that style of game is bad. It's toxic. I don't like it. I really don't like collect them all games like that, because they are not as bad as mobile games. They're not as much of a casino thing as fucking mobile games are, but they prey on that same mindset, those same obsessions. They prey on neurodivergency also in that same way, and I don't like that. That's a general critique I have of trading card games as a whole. Play Game On. What champions would like to see in the next start of the year League of Legends cinematic, like the Call Warriors, etc.? Asking both from a storytelling perspective as well as who you'd like to see in high quality animation of. I mean, those cinematics I have mixed feelings about a lot of the time, because they are... some of the good stuff from that was the Lucian story, right? That we saw Lucian assaulting Thresh because he finally decided to go and fucking get his wife, right? He decided to go and get Senna the fuck out of there. And they teased that through the Climb cinematic that led into... his conference, the Senna reveal cinematic, and that was pretty cool. That was cool that they told, they used that to actually tell a story about this character. Whereas with the Call from this year, it's okay, Pantheon is climbing up Mount Targon, and he wants to go to this gate, and Leona's there, and she's fighting him because of because of Solaria's fight. I don't know. I don't really know what the fuck that really was. I guess I'm sure Necrit did a video explaining what the lore is there, but I missed whatever part of the lore I think that really explained what the hell Pantheon is doing there. Like, it was, he went to Yulia and he was like, oh, I'm sad and I don't want to be Pantheon anymore. And she was like, fuck you, my friend, like, my husband died because of you, so man up and be a dude. And then he goes and does that. For reasons that weren't really elaborated upon very well, I think. Like, what the fuck was that thing that fell out of the sky and crashed into him? Who knows? They never explained that. And the same thing with, like, Sejuani's part of that cinematic is that she's going to fight the Ursine, and she's doing it because she wants the legendary cauldron of the whatever. Like, it's a legendary cauldron that makes food, and her tribe really needs it because they don't have any food. So she goes to fight the Ursine to get the cauldron. Could we get a follow-up on that? Like, any... Do you want to finish that story at some point? Like, what does that... How does that impact Sejuani's character? How she feels, like, her role as the Winter's Claw War Mother? Is there anything, like, do you want to fucking, like, her relationship with Volibear? Do you want to elaborate on that a lot, any way at all? Riot, please finish a fucking story that you told. That would be nice. Just finish an arc for these characters once in a while, would you? That would be nice of you. Same thing with Talia and Kaisa. Like, Kaisa goes to the place with Talia because Talia thinks that they're escaping to somewhere, but turns out, no, it's just full of Cersei. And Talia brings down the statue of Zolani onto Rek'Sai as she and Kaisa fall into the void. And Kaisa ends up landing down in Belveth's realm, right? Where did Rek'Sai go? Did she just kind of fuck off? I guess she did, because she's scared of Belveth or whatever. Do you want to do any resolution on what happened to Talia there? So that's sort of my feeling about those cinematics, is like, I would like them to just continue those storylines, frankly, but I know they won't, because they want to showcase a diversity of champions, right? Like, they want to show off many different champions. They might want to show off some of the champions that were released this year, which, fair enough. But in terms of storytelling perspective, I would just like them to finish some of the goddamn stories that they sort of almost half tell in those cinematics for once. That would be nice. As for who I'd like to see a high quality animation of, I mean Renata Glask, though. Like, I want to see that woman in action, though. Like, I want to see her do her thing. That would be cool. Zoomy, hello Skyne. In one stream you said that the last time you checked YouTube statistics, the vast majority of your viewership was assigned male by YouTube. How does your viewer demographic influence your videos? Gender as an example, but other traits as well. I think, yeah, I think it's the other way around, Zoomy, really. I think it's less that... I don't think the statistics of my YouTube viewership influence my videos so much as it's my videos influence my YouTube demographic, right? Like, I make videos in large part about League of Legends, in large part about Souls games, and those are games that are, like, definitely not only played by men, but a majority of League players, I think it's fair to say, are probably male. Like, in terms of the statistics that Riot has released, that certainly seems to be the case. And I make videos, like, I'm a cis white dude who makes gaming videos on YouTube, and that's just like, the YouTube algorithm looks at that and says, oh, okay, so men, you want a male audience, because that's the audience that responds to that kind of content, so they send those people to me. They don't really push me for women in the same way, because the algorithm determines that like, the people who are most likely to respond to my videos are that demographic. I mean, bias is bias, and it's often unconscious. Maybe the fact that I'm a man with mostly a male audience influences how I make videos. I don't know. I don't think it does. I rarely think about that. Like, mostly when I think about gender in terms of my videos, it's like to spite men. Like, when I, like, cis het dudes specifically, like, when I talk about, like, queerness in League of Legends, when I talk about, like try to bring in, like, try to resist those male content creator aesthetics of, like, rationality and objectivity and shit, like, that's specifically because I'm trying to challenge or annoy a certain kind of man. So that's in terms of like my viewer demographic influencing my videos. That happens. Like, I bring up Twisted Fate and Graves being big gay homosexual gays, specifically to annoy those people and get them to unsubscribe from me. like in part to spite them because they annoy the fuck out of me, so turnabout is fair play. But outside of that, I think it's mostly the other way around. It's that because I am cis, white, and male, that's the audience that YouTube brings to me, because that's what their algorithm says will get engagement. Hitmonkey, I am reopening the can of worms that is the question of AI. Okay, cool. Not a question I'm enthusiastic about relitigating. While you have expressed your opinion of AI image generation as a tool for corporate greed, which is understandable and I respect your answer you gave, as an enthusiast, I must provide a follow-up question as thus. Is there no place for AI image generation as a tool for actual artists? Is there no place for the enthusiast who has limited skill to express and limited time to improve upon that limited skill to create new art through the use of these powerful tools? Or is corporate and petty avarice too much of a downside to even consider that? I think you misunderstood my previous answer, which was not like one that carefully turned into a compelling essay or anything. Also, so this is a sentiment that I see floating around a lot, is the what if we lived in a better world argument, right? Like, you're an AI enthusiast, fair enough, and I can see why, because it is a fucking amazing feeling to be able to just say this image with these things and these traits and these, like, these things about it, please make that real into the world. Like, to have your vision in your head and see it come alive on the page, like that. Well, not, I mean, it takes a little bit longer than just a snap of the fingers, but to see it just come to life before your eyes, springing fully formed from your mind like that is amazing. It's an amazing feeling. I don't doubt that one bit. But I think you're engaging in a fallacy here, is that you are thinking of this tool from the perspective of living in a completely different world than the one you actually live in. And that's something I've seen around a lot with a lot of people who are enthusiastic about this, saying like, but what if, like, what about the potential? Like, what about all the cool things that under different circumstances this tool could be used to do? Like, what about all the amazing potential that this tool would have if only we lived in a different world? And it's like, that's not really an argument that I find it very productive to engage with, because we don't live in a different world. Like, if we did not live under capitalism, if we had eliminated scarcity, if we lived in luxury gay space communism, I wouldn't have a problem with AI art, really. Like, maybe some small ethical qualms about not using someone's work without their consent, but if this was no material threat to any artist, if it was no threat of this being used to drive down labor value and being used to drive people into poverty or eliminate them as participating members of society, yeah, sure, fine. Like, if we lived in a better world where all the negative qualities of AI art simply didn't exist, sure, it would be good, in the same way that if we lived in a world where cyanide was candy and just tasted nice and didn't have any negative impact on your body, I would be eating cyanide all the fucking time. Absolutely, that sounds delicious, except we don't live in that world. And I don't find it productive to engage with that argument, because the thing I tried to express last time is that the problem isn't with the nature of the technology, right? Like, a lot of people are sort of very invested in defending the honor of AI art, in terms of like, no, it's unfair of you to judge this thing in this way, because like the technology itself isn't evil, except that's like sort of hearkening back to what I said about whether I consider myself a good person. It's not about whether or not the thing itself is or isn't inherently good or bad. It's about what it does. What does AI art do in the world? And what it does in the world is the same thing that all other automation does. All of it. All automation that has ever been done on an industrial scale has done this very same thing, which is drive down the costs of skilled labor, eliminate that skilled labor as a political and cultural group in the society that the automation is being applied to, and redistribute the resources in that industry in the favor of capital. That's what it does. Like when textile mills were invented, right? Textile workers, for a very long time, it had been a highly skilled job. Weaving, creating fabrics, weaving fabrics. That was highly skilled labor. It was a difficult job to do. It took a lot of work and care and skill and attention to do that. And so the laborers who did that work were able to command a certain level of wage, because you have to work for a long time to get good at this, and when you produce good work like that, it deserves to be paid for. Like, everyone sort of understood that, yeah, like, the economics of this, even under a free market capitalist system, is such that we have to pay a certain wage for this labor. Like, we have to, otherwise no one will do it. And we need this product. Like, there's a demand, and so, like, demand drove up the price of the thing. Automation is introduced, and all of a sudden, the labor value of this highly skilled labor, like this incredibly difficult human craft, absolutely in the toilet. Like, it completely plummets, it collapses. The industry, the craft of textile work collapses. It vanishes. Like, it's completely destroyed. And the people who did that work were devastated by this. Like, because it's not just that they were sitting there doing work, they had culture around that work. They had a history of skill and community, of passing on knowledge and experience, of like collaborative human development. Like, there was so much more going on there than just the economic output of the activity. Like, being a textile worker meant something specific. It had a cultural position. It had a heritage to it. It was a part of what it meant to be like a person for them. It was an identity for these people. And what the Luddites correctly identified is automation is going to destroy all that. Like, our way of life, our craft, who we are as a people, we're going to be unable to make a living. We're going to be unable to command a decent wage for our work, and we're going to be destroyed. Like textile workers as a class of people are going to be destroyed by this, and they were. This is the thing I want to bring across. It's like, that happened. And it's good for me now, hundreds of years later, that I can buy a $2 t-shirt or whatever. Cool for me. And so we look back at the Luddites like, ha, fucking fools, morons, like anti-technology Philistines. Couldn't they see that this technology was the way forward, that it was the next step in human development or whatever? But they were devastated, dude. They lost their work. They lost their living. They lost their ability to provide for their families. They were thrown into poverty, homelessness. Like, they died. People died because of this. And that's not a question of not whether or not a textile mill is evil, whether or not the devil has imbued this thing with malice and That's not a question of that. Like, it's not because textile mill technology is evil, it's because we live in a world where that technology has that impact on human beings. And these are my politics. Human beings are more important than things. They're more important than technology. They're more important than toys, right? They're more important than innovation. Human beings are more important than innovation. Lives are more important than innovation. What is going to happen with AI art is the same thing that has happened with all other automation that has ever happened. The value of labor is going to be driven down. Hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people are going to be put out of work by this. The cultures, the subcultures, the collected knowledge, the identities, the histories, the positions of these people in society is going to be made redundant and eliminated. And anyone who can transition into another industry, anyone who has spent like 30 years honing incredibly specific, specialized labor skills, being the best environment texture artist that you could possibly be, are going to be fucked, because they can't just go back to college and get a new degree. And even if they could, that degree wouldn't guarantee them work. Like, have you trying to get work with a master's degree these days? Like, it's going to throw thousands of people into precarity. It's going to make people's lives worse, and because especially of the way capitalism works in nations like the United States, it's going to kill people. Because it's going to take away their livelihoods. And that is, in some societies, that is lethal. It shouldn't be, but that's the world that we live in. And so if you want to, like, if you're very invested in AI art not being an evil thing, yeah, sure, it's not evil, but it's going to be used to do evil. because that's what automation does in a capitalist market system. So, like, it's not corporate and petty avarice that I'm worried about, dude. It's not, oh, there is a CEO who's evil, who's twirling his mustache, just going, I'm going to do evil with the AI tool. No, it's the economic system of incentives that exists in our world. It's the free market capitalism that we exist under is going to respond to that automation in exactly one way, and that is to make people poor. Is to oh, we can eliminate a bunch of human beings as a cost, as an externality for our business. Cool. Go fuck yourselves and die. We get to save some money on our yearly revenue thing, and that's good for us because line go up, and so fuck you and die. Because that is the economic system that we live under. The economic system that we live under says that that is a good thing. That is moral, that is right. So, like, my critique is not of AI art, it's of capitalism. Right? And so, the reason why I think AI art needs to be denigrated and resisted and ridiculed and made fun of and regulated and maybe in some ways banned is because, sorry, that's the we live in an economic system where in order to protect people, human beings, that needs to be done. Like, this thing will be used to do evil. It will do evil in the world. Not because it wants to, not because it's inherently made by Satan or whatever, but because that's the way the world is. Change the world. Like, eliminate capitalism. Get rid of it. Introduce UBI. Make sure that anyone who has spent decades of their lives studying, honing their craft to be able to be artists are not going to be made poor, not going to be thrown out on the street, are not going to see the value of their labor decimated by this. And then you can have the toy. Then you can have your treat. Like, you're adorable. And like I said, I understand why it's so compelling. If I didn't have all these ethical qualms about it, I would be using it myself to make thumbnails and background assets for my videos. That sounds fucking amazing, but that's not the world we live in. That's not where I am. I don't live there. I can't align my ethical and philosophical behavior after a world that doesn't exist. I have to live here, in the world where Amazon lives. So, yeah, no, and that's the reason why, by the way, you're not allowed to post AI art on my server. Because it is going to do evil, and I don't, it's a small thing, I'm not going to be able to resist it. 100 years from now, I'm going to be a Luddite. People will look back at people like me and go, oh, that fool, that technophobic moron, that backwards-thinking Philistine, that caveman, that he couldn't see that this wonderful art that allows me to make a beautiful painting by typing 3 words into Google and pressing make image is a wonderful thing. It's good for me. Because that person is not going to think about whose lives... think about the lives that were destroyed to make that possible. I accept that I'm probably on the losing side of history here. But, you do the small things you can. Vega, would you be open to taking suggestions from supporters at some point? Blah, blah, blah. You've opened up more to supporter side of the thing and allows us to Silent Hill monsters. Okay, so the question you're fundamentally asking is, would I take suggestions from supporters? And that's no. There is... On my Patreon, there's a tier, pretty expensive, but where you can make me do a short on a topic that you choose. A character, a game, a thing. Make me have a hot take about a thing that you want. And that's about as much as I'm willing to commit to viewer suggestions, because I've done that before. If you're very old head, you might remember early on, when I was trying to figure out how to make a Patreon work with this YouTube channel, was I had thing of oh, you get to vote on the videos that I'm going to make. You get to vote on topics. And I tried to make that work for a while. Unfortunately, it doesn't work for 2 reasons. First of all, YouTube doesn't like it. YouTube wants consistency. They want me to pump out consistent League of Legends videos the way that I've been doing, because that's what the algorithm knows how to sell to my audience. And so I've managed to, if I want to introduce other subjects into that, I have to do that carefully a little bit at a time. I have to pace that out so that the algorithm doesn't freak the fuck out, or doesn't lose the ability to push my content to the audience that wants to see it. So that's reason number 1 is taking requests would lead to some big swings in subjects and variety that is just not sustainable with the job I do, unfortunately. And I'm kind of resentful of that. It annoys me that I'm not really free to choose my topics as much as I would like to be, as much as it seems that I am. The other reason is that it burns me out, as it turns out. I am driven very much by my own curiosity and by my own interests, and if I'm bound by other people's passions, like if I have to make videos about stuff that other people tell me to make videos about, it's not that I can't enjoy that, it's not that that can't be fun, it's that it burns me out over time, because the fuel that seems to feed me doing this is my own curiosity. It's my own desire to talk about certain subjects, to engage with certain things. And I've dealt with burnout many times in the past. It's not good, it's bad, it's in fact dangerous for me, because, again, I need to make rent. So requests and suggestions on a broader level are not possible, I'm afraid. Much though I had a romantic idea that I wanted to be the YouTuber who takes all of his ideas from his audience. Like, who makes the content that the audience wants to see. Unfortunately, it's not viable. My brain is not a squid. Is there any particular story in Runeterra that you're really nervous about how it would progress? For example, I'm actually dreading what Riot thinks is the proper conclusion of the Mage Rebellion. Yeah, the Mage Rebellion. That's the one. That's the one I'm scared about. Oh, fuck me. Riot... As I've said before, Riot is a liberal corporation. And I don't mean that in terms of, like, American conceptions of liberalism, where, oh, liberals are the loony lefties who care about pronouns and blue hair and what. Like, not in that sense, but liberal in the socioeconomic sense, in the political sense, where they are invested in liberal and neoliberal political thinking. Because that's the kind of behavior that's amenable to capitalism, right? So... they are centrists, and they believe, and I say this as a company, like Riot employs plenty of socialists. They employ plenty of people who are everything from libertarians to communists. Like, they have a very broad diversity of internal political leanings. Absolutely. But as a company, they are centrist neoliberals. And centrist neoliberals look at violent revolution and say, the priority here is to stop things from changing radically. Like, the priority here is to find the center and run there as fast as we can, and then just sit there, because the center is the sensible thing. Like, everyone who's on the extremes is always wrong. The extremes are always wrong. The center is always more right than every other position. And that's the sort of thing that becomes bad when the subject in question is genocide. When the subject in question is, for example, the far-right religious conservatives in the United States say, we want to have all trans people be dead or gone. Like, we want to eliminate trans people from society. We want them to not exist. The same thing with gay people. We want them to not exist. We want them to not be real. We want their identities not to be real. We want them not to exist as political actors in the world. And the liberal position on that is to say, well, couldn't we come to a compromise? What if we say that some of the gays don't exist? Or what if the gays get to exist, but only within the traditional bonds of holy matrimony and wholesomeness, and they don't get to practice their perverse sexuality in a way that's unpleasant to you in some way? Like, the liberals will try and find a compromise with exterminationist positions, which means liberals will try to compromise with genocide. And that's the sketch that Riot made for the storyline in Demacia, is that, yes, certainly, yes, it's very bad that Demacia is persecuting. Like, that's bad, obviously. That's like, ooh, they shouldn't do that. That's very mean of them, and it's very reasonable to be upset about it. But also, if you try to do some violence to make it stop, then maybe you're the extremist, and maybe you're just as bad as they are, and maybe you're just two sides of one coin, and maybe you're both the problem. And maybe the reasonable position is like a compromise position in the center of it all, where we say, oh, we don't want to destroy the Demacian state just because it did a little bit of genocide. That's an extreme position. No, we want to keep Demacia, and Demacia should still exist, because Demacia is like not evil. It's fine. It's like Demacia. Some people like Demacia, you know? And they also have a right to have their genocidal fascist state. so we need to have Demacia still, even though all of its leaders and its entire political system is predicated on the persecution of a group of people who live perfectly peacefully, without incident, without causing damage or destruction anywhere else in fucking like, Ionia is not having mage problems. They're not having problems where, like, mages are going around dropping nuclear magic bombs on cities. They're like, oh, but what about the Rune Wars? What the fuck about the Rune Wars? Is anyone running around with a World Rune and Rune Terror right now? No, because Rise is grabbing all of them and putting them where they belong under lock and fucking key. Like, mages aren't dangerous. We know this. The entirety of the world of Rune Terror demonstrates that mages aren't evil or inherently dangerous, and there's no need for a security state to suppress them. But the liberal centrist position is like, oh, well, Silas is being too extreme. Like, oh, look at him. He's a demagogue. He's like, he's evil also, too. So, like, maybe having the same position as him, that Demacia needs to be destroyed, maybe that's evil. Because Silas is like a bad guy who's manipulative and he's mean and he kills people and that's bad. Which is like, motherfuckers, you made Silas, Riot. Riot made Silas specifically to be the guy who goes too far. So that Lux can be the sensible centrist compromise in between them, like who's both a noble of the Demacian upper class and a mage at the same time. She could be the bridge that bridges the gap of understanding between these two groups so that they can both develop empathy and see each other as human beings. That is not how, it's not how you can't, like, there's not, if one of, like, if fucking Himmler had secretly been a Jew, he couldn't have bridged the gap of empathy between the Nazi party and the Jews. That's not how it works. It's not, the Mage Seekers and the entire structure of the Demacian state is modeled after exterminationist, genocidal campaigns of ethnic cleansing. That's what they're throwing people in camps, they're poisoning them, they're trying to eliminate them as a part of the population. That is genocide by the literal definition of the term. You can't, there isn't a compromise position with genocide. There isn't one. When one side says we want to kill all of these people and the other side says we want none of these people to be killed, saying what if we just killed some of them, is not a compromise position. Like that is not a compromise position, because that only compromises with the exterminationists. Who will say, oh, we kill some of them? Absolutely, let's do that. Let's kill some of them. And then once we've killed some of them, they come back and say, we still want to kill everyone. And then the liberals say, well, let's compromise and kill some of them. Well, then kill some more of them. We still keep getting closer to the goal of the people who want to exterminate everyone. We do not get closer to the goal of the people who want nobody to be exterminated. Right? Like, you cannot compromise with genocide. And Riot is a neoliberal corporation which is deeply invested in liberal politics. They want to tell a centrist story where the people on the extremes are wrong and the people who seek compromise are right. And you can't fucking do that with a genocide story. You can't do that with a genocide story. So yes, I dread where Riot is going to take that, because they made Silas specifically to be a character that they can point at and go, the other side is bad too. Okay, moving on. Vega, wholesome question because I suddenly feel pressure to ask something again even though I already have. You don't really need to feel pressured. How are the rats doing? Have they adjusted to the new apartment? Well, please show rat pics if you'd like. I love them. I mean, I'm gonna have to bum you out a little bit. We lost a couple of them over the last few months. One of them because she was old. She just, like, she got the diseases that you get from age, and she was doing very poorly, and she was in pain, and so we had to say goodbye to her. The other one developed a bad infection, possibly caused by a cancer that we couldn't see, and she was suffering, and she had to go. And that's, like, one of them was over 2 years old. That's about as long as a rat is ever likely to live. The other one was somewhat younger, and that really stung, but it's part of what being an owner of these kinds of pets are, because they don't live very long. So a little bit of a bummer on that one. I don't have any pics to show you, because I'm not really the guy who takes a lot of pictures of my pets. But the two who are left are doing well. They're very healthy and happy. It feels a little bit lonely in their big cage right now when there's only the two of them. I'm talking to a breeder or two about trying to get a hold of some new cage mates for them. It'll be a while. The breeders I've talked to, there aren't a lot of them in Denmark. It's a small country. They don't plan to get any more litters of rats until the winter. So it'll be a while before I have any new girls running around the cage to show off. So yeah, less wholesome than maybe we both wanted that question to be, Vega. But sorry, that's the reality of owning rats as pets. Let's see. What are your thoughts on the aesthetic of this real life game? Everyone seems to... Oh, right. Meme question. What's the art style? The outside seems to be pretty, but I'd like your opinion. What could they improve in a potential expansion or sequel? It's a meme question that you're giving me. And I'm going to counter that by giving you a sincere answer, which is, have you ever looked at a sunset? And I don't mean have you been outside while a sunset was happening, or have you looked at the sky while there was some pink and some stuff happening? Have you ever taken some time out of your day to look at here's a sunset, I'm going to spend some time just looking at it, just taking it in. A lot of people don't do that very often. But it is gaudy. It is way over the top. It's ridiculous. It's an explosion of garish color that makes no god, like pinks and purples and reds and oranges all over the sky. It is a ridiculously oversaturated spectacle of nonsense, and it is the most beautiful thing that you will ever see in your life. There is nothing in the world that is more beautiful than the world itself. Go to somewhere dark, far away from the city, on a clear night, preferably on a mountainside if you can get up there, and just spend some time looking at the sky. Like that is your prime... No phones, no nothing. Not because phones are evil or whatever, but just where the only thing that you are doing, the activity that you are engaging in, is just looking at the sky. It is perfect. Like there's it is perfect. It is so beautiful. It's transcendent. Like, it genuinely, I don't want to sound like an old hippie, but it's transcendent. There is nothing in the world more beautiful than the world. Is my answer to your meme question. Zenon, what are some pieces of media or people that you think have been profoundly inspirational for how you create an analysis now and analyze media now? That's a difficult one because the honest answer is all of them. It's all of them. Like, it's that there isn't... It's like... It's the thing of, like, the way it works is... You don't get to pick your influences, is the thing. I have been educated by people who I deeply dislike, and whose politics are horrid, and whose media I hate, but I've been educated by them. J.K. Rowling is a good example. Like it or not, Harry Potter is a fun foundational text to me. It's incredibly important to my personal life. It's an incredibly important part of my history as a person. I need some water. Much as I may resent and criticize it. And that's the God's honest truth, you know. Bad people make good art a lot of the time. Roman Polanski has made some great movies. That piece of shit. Fucking pedophile rapist piece of garbage. And I have read conservative thinkers. Like, I've read Burke, I've read Locke, like liberals and conservatives and that. Like, I've read some of the philosophy of Immanuel Kant, a man whose categorical imperative I think is stupid. I have been educated by people whose work and whose personalities I deeply dislike. And that's all part of it. Like, even the stuff that you read and you go, that's stupid, I don't want to think like that, I want to think completely in the opposite way, that's still... It still helps you clarify who you yourself are. It still helps make you more you, to reject something. So, it's all of it. Like, I don't know how to enumerate it specifically. Like, if you want to talk about, like, in terms of how I make content, for example. Zero punctuation. Movie Bob, a couple of creators on The Escapist back in the day that I followed quite a lot, and their style and their delivery and the way that they make videos, very influential on how I made my earlier videos, like way back in the day, and still influential on me now because I have decided to break away from that style of creation. Like, I'm really not much of a fan of Croshaw these days. Like, I think he's fine over there in his own corner, but I find his personality and affect and the way that he thinks about media is I don't really like it very much. But it's still influential to me. Same thing with Movie Bob. Like, there's a lot of his videos that I quite like, that are very well made. I think he seems like rather not a person that I very much want to interact with in terms of his politics and the way that he is. And that goes for a lot of like creators and media that I've read and consumed. Is like a lot of his stuff that at one point might have been influential to me, but which I've later rejected or moved away from, but it's still influential to me. I mean, H-Bomber Guy, Lindsay Ellis, Philosophy Tube, those are some of the people like whose content I have consumed a lot. Dan Olson. I don't know that they're like directly influential on the way that I make media as such. Like, I don't try to copy H-Bomber Guy's style. No one should, because it's his. But I've watched a lot of his work, and that's going to have an influence on me whether I like it or not. So it's like, it's all of it. So I can't really give a more specific answer than that. What do you think of how nostalgia affects our perception of things like art and media we now consume? Do you think it's ultimately negative or positive? No. I think it just is. Nostalgia affects how we perceive things. I think is the breadth of that. Like, I don't think there's a moral component to that. Like, it's easy to look at the way that like broad pop culture is executed now, with like Disney in such a position of dominance, and so much of how Disney's brand works and how they make money built on nostalgia. And we have these nostalgia cycles and these reboots, and like Stranger Things looks back to the 80s, and like but nostalgia cycles seem to be a pretty natural part of media. That just seems to be something that happens. And it's easy to sort of look at it and go, oh, our souls are deadening, there's no original thought left in the world, and everyone is sort of just like looking at their own navels and like jerking off with their nostalgia. But like, I don't think that's really true. Like, I think it's a valid concern to have about, like, I think being concerned about Disney's monopoly on world culture, like the monopoly that they're trying to build, is valid. I think criticizing their style of making media and art is valid. I don't think, like, oh, nostalgia is bad, is a particularly good or useful take. If you could remove one character from Legends and Runeterra, League of Runeterra's lore, just wholesale take them out and compensate the story for their absence, which character and why? I think my answer to that is no. Like, I really... no. I don't really think of it that way. Like, Shaco, I guess you could get rid of because it wouldn't do anything. Like, no, who cares? Doesn't matter. But the world of League of Legends broadly is like... I think any character that you just, like, Thanos snap and remove would make the game, like, would make it poorer. Like, they all, like... they all do add something. Sometimes, like Shaco or Rammus, it's not much that they add, but like they add something. Like, it's not. I don't think there's a thing of like, oh, we can take this one out and there we go, better thing happens. So I don't think I really have an answer to that one. Classified. Have you looked into Overwatch animations designs much? I'm so interested to hear some of your takes on them and how they hold up to other AAA multiplayers. I mean, mostly I engaging with Overwatch makes me sad. Because Blizzard fucked that game so hard. Like, they just pissed on it. Like, so, like, with Overwatch League, they started pissing on that game. Absolutely just really, it's that level of disrespect, I think. And Overwatch 2 is more of that. Like, it's such a ugly, cynical thing. And especially in terms of how it treats the characters and the story, it just makes me sad. Honestly, like, I don't really want to engage with Overwatch because it just depresses me. Because it's a game it's a game and a lore and a narrative in a world that could have been, that was set up so well to be so much better than it turned out to be when Blizzard, like when their executives got it in their heads that esports is the thing now, and therefore Overwatch is an esports game, and Overwatch League is the only thing we give a fucking shit about. And so you want to do some story, and then, yeah, fuck you. Like, here, have $5, and occasionally you can do an animated short. But fuck you. Do some comics, I guess, sometimes. I don't know. Like, it really feels like a game that was a passion project for so many people that the company who owned it just slapped them in the face over and over and over again. Everything they wanted to do with these characters, everything they wanted to do with this world got just mulched. And it makes me sad. So I don't talk about Overwatch much. I might talk about Apex Legends, a game which is treating itself and its story and its characters much better. 1 cent, maybe a weird question, but do you have any opinions on anti-fans or hate-doms? There's something I've stumbled across in a few different fandoms, and I really just find it odd. Yeah, I mean, it's a cliche to say that love and hate are two sides of the same coin. It's not true either. They're not the same thing, but they are the same kind of obsession. Like, being a stan and being a hater is not the same thing. It is the same kind of obsession, right? And in the same way that I think stans are bad, like it's an unhealthy bad thing to engage with, like to make a core of your identity. Also a very juvenile thing. Anti-fans and hate-doms are the same, like they're toxic. It's like, even when it's something that deserves, like Harry Potter, let's go back to that well one more time since that seems to be a theme today. I deeply despise J.K. Rowling now. I have no love left for the Harry Potter series because its failures have been magnified by the failures of its author. But I'm also not like, I don't spend that much of my life or time thinking about it, writing about it, considering it, talking to other people about how much I hate it and how much I want to hate it, or how bad it is. Like, I bring up the Harry Potter series when it's relevant to something, like when it provides me with a relevant example to talk about, and other than that, I don't think about it. Like, I threw out my Harry Potter books, and I've never looked at them since. I haven't felt any need to set them on fire. I haven't felt any need to buy 100 copies so I can burn them outside of J.K. Rowling's house. You know? So I think hate-doms are bad in that they are obsessive. Like, they're unhealthy in the way that obsession tends to be unhealthy. They're bad for your soul. Like, being in that headspace, like, that's animated by spite and misery and hatred so much is emotionally destructive. Like, it's not, like, hating something is not bad. Like fucking despising some piece of media is not bad. It's that obsession with it. Is like making it so much a part of how you think and how you feel at all times is destructive and bad. So don't do that. And like, if you come across it, just run away from it. Like, block the people who are engaged in it. Don't talk to them. Don't engage with them, because every time you do, you feed the obsession. Like, if you have a friend who's into it, maybe try and bring them out of it. Like, tell them, like, hey, dude, this is consuming you, and I think it's gonna be bad for you. Maybe you should, let's do something else. But mostly just don't engage with that on any level, because it's just bad all the way down, I think. Emi Tirazu, if you were able to create your ideal job in Final Fantasy XIV, what aesthetics would you draw from, and how would those mechanics play into the fan? I mean, I don't know. I don't even know what all the jobs in Final Fantasy XIV are. I'm a warrior. I've played monk. I know Dark Knight and Arcanist are there. Tarot card dude, astrologer, right? That's what they're called. You can have a gun, I think. Archer and bard. I don't even know all the jobs in Final Fantasy. So 14. So I don't think I could tell you. I don't know. Sorry, I can't give you a good answer there. Played Max, which Ghibli movies do you enjoy most for the plot and which for the animation? Mononoke, probably most for the plot, just because it's so it's so heartfelt and bleak, and brutal. And for the animate, like, in terms of, I don't like, they're all gorgeously animated. I don't really know that I'd be able to rank them like that, but comfort food for me is Kiki's Delivery Service. Yeah. The way that she's animated, the way that she engages emotionally with what's happening to her. Yep. that one. Windhelm, will you play Mass Effect Andromeda after you finish Mass Effect 3? Would love to see your first-time reaction. No, I think after Mass Effect 3 I need a break from Mass Effect, because I played through 1, 2, and now I'm, like, trying to finish up 3. I should really finish up 3 soon, so I can do other stuff. And after that, I want to have Anna edit something else. I think I want to give them a break, too, from editing all of this fucking space adventure shit. So, moving on to something else, I think. I might play Andromeda at some point. But it's, like, after Mass Effect 3, I want to change it up. What's my favorite TTRPG system? If you've played D&D, which class do you like the best? Oh, favorites questions. Bad at those, but fortunately, I've only played 2 TTRPG systems, which is World of Darkness and Dungeons & Dragons, and I don't have a favorite because they do very different things, and they do them well, in their different ways. If you play D&D, which class do you like the best? I've only played Warlock and Cleric, and that's only 2, so I don't know how to pick a favorite among those. Let's see. Gizen, a bunch of Legends of Runeterra questions I've been meaning to ask. As the first champion of the to be introduced outside of League of Legends proper, what are your thoughts on Nora? Also curious what you think about the corrupted aspect skinline and the darkened Zolani. I love Nora a lot. She would not work as a champion in League of Legends. Like, that's the thing, is absolutely wouldn't work as a champion in League of Legends. She's not designed for that. Her powers, the way that she works, like, she is very much a champion who can exist in Legends of Runeterra, within those game systems, within that means of creating characters who could not exist in League of Legends. And as such, she's a really interesting example of, like, the limitations of what a League of Legends champion can even be. And how game design and gameplay must influence the way that characters are created. So, like, there's that. And she's also just adorable. She's an adorable character design. I really like her. I do feel a little poorly about, like, Yumi's whole thing. Her whole story, like the entirety of everything that she was, is she's the cat who's going on an adventure with Book through a bunch of portals because she wants to find Nora. Right? That was her whole reason for being, her whole raison d'etre. The whole concept of her character was she needs to go and find Nora, who is missing. Now, Nora is no longer missing. And so Yumi is like, why is she still riding around on Book? Going on, like, why would she still do that? Because she found Nora, and now she's gonna go home and have fish and relax and chill out because she has ended her storyline. And I'm a little annoyed that they didn't give Yumi something new to be about after they introduced Nora. That they didn't give her, like, hey, here's the new reason why Yumi floats around on Book and goes around and goes through portals and stuff. Here's the new reason why that's what she spends her time doing. Not that Yumi is the most lore important character in League of Legends, but it's a little annoying that they didn't, like, hey, we resolved her primary plot. Just good luck with that, I guess. That bothers me a little bit, but you know. As for the corrupted aspect skinline, it's a cool skinline. I appreciate it when they make Diana and Leona huge. That's cool. I don't know about corrupted Pantheon, because, like, Pantheon feels like he's been corrupted enough many times. Like, that's a subject I have some opinions on, but it's only a skinline, so who cares? Corrupted Zoe is amazing. Fucking amazing skinline. S tier, absolutely amazing. Really do like that. As for the Darkened Zolani, she's interesting, but she's not developed enough for me to have a strong opinion on her. She seems to be, like, she's a rival of Aatrox, basically. She's, like, Aatrox is the, like, I'm gonna murder people with a sword person, and Zolani is the I'm gonna manipulate people with dark sorcery and force them to love me kind of character, who's, like, motivated by a twisted sense of, oh, these people will love me because my love is so gorgeous. Like, she's corrupted in that sense, like, she's a sort of twisted, toxic love character. But there's not really enough development on her to have strong opinions about her, I don't think. Azeli, what do you feel is important in the magic system, and what are some more interesting ways magic systems can influence character design? What? No, I'm not baiting Skye to ramble about Avatar. I would never. I mean, you bring up Avatar, but I would push back on that, actually. I don't think Avatar's magic system influenced their character design very much, honestly. Specifically, because, like when you think about the nations of Avatar: The Last Airbender, like Fire Nation, Earth Nation, Water Nation, Wind Nomads, Water Tribes, Wind Nomads, they are much more based on like their character designs are much more based on the real life cultures that they're drawing from. Like the water tribes are Inuit, like they are indigenous Arctic peoples, and like the Fire Nation is Imperial China, and so is the Earth Nation in a sense. Like I think there's some more, there's some more nuances there, and specifically about what they're based on. But like and like the air nomads are Tibetans. Like they're very much based on the cultures that call like places like Nepal and Tibet their home. And they're based on Zen Buddhism and stuff. So like, I would not say that the character design in Avatar is very strongly influenced by the magic system specifically, which is something a person can disagree with. But like I would say that it's not. Like the air nomads fly around on things because they have airbending powers, but like their character designs are all tropes and visual markers that are associated with various forms of Zen Buddhism and like forms of spirituality and indigenous spirituality of East Asia. So character design, yeah. And if you talk about like the ways magic systems influence character design, that's really just the same as anything else, in the sense that if you want the magic system to be a part of the storytelling of the character, then you just have to do that, right? Think about Full Metal Alchemist, right? The character design of Full Metal Alchemist is influenced by alchemy in the sense of, for example, Roy Mustang with his gloves, right? Like that's a way that the magic system is. He needs these gloves to generate this spark so that he can do his thing, right? Like and like all these tools and things that they have that are based around the magic system that they use. It's like with Armstrong with like his punching like knuckles and shit. That's a way that a magic system can influence character design. But like character design, like magic systems, unless they are very internal to the character, think of Dragon Ball, for example. Ki in Dragon Ball is essentially a magic system. So that influences character design in that Super Saiyans, right? Like, boom. But the thing that influences the design of the Super Saiyan character design more is that Akira Toriyama and his assistants were so fucking tired of having to ink all of Son Goku's black hair, which is so big and takes such a fucking long time and it's so tedious to do. So they're just like, okay, I'm gonna give him a superpower form that's blonde, so we don't have to do that anymore. Like, so it's like interesting ways for magic system to influence character design is very contextual. Like if you have a magic system, for example, that's based on physical tools, right? Like you think of classical Macbeth witchcraft, like Eye of Newton, Toe of Frog, and so on. Then like the way to influence the character design is to, what does it mean for this character to practice this magic? Well, it means that they're always carrying reagents around. It means that they're always carrying spell components and materials around. So they'll have pouches and they'll have bags and they'll have like little containers and shit, and they'll have like, if you're dealing with a classical wizard, they'll have a wand or a staff, right? So I don't think there's any like, so I don't know really like what you feel is important in a magic system. There's nothing important in a magic system. Like inherently, it's contextual. I'm sorry, I kind of have to give that answer because that's a very general, broad question, and for that you get a very general, broad answer. Spooky Lulz, what's a series you're interested in and hope to get into but haven't found the time yet? Oh my god, so many. Ah, fucking hell. Like, this shit is coming out I haven't watched Edge Runners yet. I really wanted to. Shit is coming out all the time. There's so many things. All of that, like Akiba Maid War, for example, I was interested in. Because that's a fucking bonkers-ass concept. That seems interesting. Haven't had the time to watch it. So many games I haven't been able to play. Too many to list, Spooky Lulz. Too many to list. Opinions on Warhammer 40k, as in the tabletop and the media around it. That's a very broad, general question again. There's Salaman, so I don't know that I can give you a very specific answer. I guess my broadest hot take on 40k is it should remember that it's a satire more often. It should remember to be funny a little bit more than it does. Because like 40k has a fascist problem, specifically that the aesthetics of 40k, like not necessarily the media itself, but the aesthetics of 40k is all shit that fascists fucking love. Like, there's a reason why the Trumpers posted so many fucking memes about Trump, like the God Emperor of mankind, like really literally putting him in the position, like in that in that armor and into that aesthetic, it's because that aesthetic of total authoritarian worship of the strong man appeals to them. And Warhammer is in part a satire of that. Like, Warhammer emerged in part as a satire of Thatcherite Britain, right? And in very early Warhammer 40k lore and art, Space Marines were essentially like just shitty cops. Right? Like just really shitty, miserable, ugly, like fucking asshole cops that no one likes. And that was funny. Like it was funny that they had such high pompous self-regard, and then most people just thought that they were fucking assholes and wankers, right? Like that was part of the joke. It was part of the satire. Nowadays, the Space Marines take themselves entirely too seriously, is my big hot take. The humor in Warhammer 40k, and I haven't played and engaged with like the newest revisions of the media, admittedly, but the humor in 40k has like sort of receded to be the orcs, essentially, like carrying the torch of that, and maybe some of the chaos factions a little bit. But every other part of Warhammer 40k takes itself, I think, too seriously, and should maybe remember that it's a satire a little bit more. That's a very, very, very big, broad, very unnuanced hot take, but you gave me a very big, broad, unnuanced question, so that's the best I can do. I have no opinions on the tabletop. I've never played it. I know you don't like your favorites, so instead, what are sort of genres or aesthetics that, when mixed, have the most potential in your eyes? What's two great tastes that would taste great together? I don't know. Sort of continuing a theme, Swimming Eagle, it depends on the execution and the context. And I can give you an example of this. Fallout. So the first two Fallout games are set in a post-apocalyptic world that ended like with the apocalypse happened in the 50s, right? So this is a world that has been decimated by nuclear war and fundamentally changed, but which holds on to a cultural legacy from the 1950s, right? It holds on to cultural markers, to the vestiges of that lost civilization. So like you get things like post-apocalyptic greaser gangs, right? Running around, and like things that reference 1950s culture. In the original two Fallout games, that aesthetic mix is making a point, right? Like it's making a point by contrasting the sort of sunny, cheerful optimism of especially of how the 50s were seen at that point. Like this is the time of happy days, right? Of especially how the 50s were seen at that point as this mythological golden age that was lost, like before the 60s with all the social unrest and upheaval, before the Cold War really started to make the world a darker and more scary place. This sunny optimism of the boom years kind of thing. And like the sunny optimism of all these fucking boomers who were constantly hearkening back to the 50s, right? And so Fallout makes a comment on that, like, no, actually, the 1950s were a time when we were preparing and very ready to blow the entire fucking world to pieces and destroy each other. And Vault Tech especially is a commentary on that, like of the commercialization of survival of the apocalypse, right? Like this 1950s, like, you and your family will be housed in the luxurious spaces of the Vault Tech updated vault. Oh, yes. Yes, indeed. Mother will have a, highly advanced kitchen, and father shall read the paper by the television. Yes. Like, that kind of thing. Like, it was the commercialization and the capitalization of survival of the apocalypse, where, like, you can just engage with a fun consumer product in order to not die when the world is ended by a deep apocalypse, like by an apocalypse that we inflict upon ourselves. It was a commentary. The aesthetic of the post-apocalyptic world was a commentary on the 50s. That's why the mix works. Think about also Fallout New Vegas, where the aesthetic of Las Vegas, the aesthetic of the Strip, of gambling, of glamour, of that, like, the high-rolling high life, is contrasted against the devastation of the wasteland and, like, the sort of cowboy frontier nature of the rest of New California. And then think about how that contrasts with Caesar's Legion, which is so harkening back to the Roman legions, to this particularly very fascist imperialist way of running the world. Like, those aesthetics are mixed and matched in ways that comment upon one another, that say something about one another. Fallout 3 and 4, on the other hand, not so fucking much. Fallout 3 and 4 just are games that kind of look at the aesthetic of Fallout and go, oh, that looks cool. Like, that's a cool, sort of iconic, neat aesthetic that looks it looks cool. Like, oh, 1950s aesthetic, but it's all destroyed. Oh, cool. Like, it just seems to think that the aesthetic is cool, that it's just kind of fun. and it doesn't seem to engage with, those games don't seem to engage with or give a shit about what that aesthetic mix was supposed to say about either the 50s or about the concept of nuclear apocalypse. Like, they are completely disengaged from the idea of nuclear apocalypse at all, and what that means. So it depends on the execution. Like, it can be done really well in interesting ways, and it can be done really badly in ways that are bland and empty and meaningless. Swamp Mist. I don't know if you've done it yet, but One Piece question. Design hot take on Frankie, hopefully comparing pre- and post-time skip. I mean, that would be a short on the Shorts channel if I ever did that. But I also don't think I have a strong hot take on Frankie in general. He is just kind of a comedy cyborg guy in the way that he's designed. Like the sort of thematic idea seems to be that, hey, he's a guy, like, he's a shipbuilder, and that is so much a part of his personhood, like a part of his personality, that he has turned himself into essentially a ship, right? Like, he has essentially built himself the same way that he would build a ship, which is, like, that's cool. That's an interesting idea. But pre and post time skip, I don't feel like there's that much of a radical shift in the semiotics of his character. Like, I don't think his character shifts that much between those two. Really, I think the way that he's recontextualized in the Wano arc is maybe more of a change in the way that his character design is used, because he's shifted away from being Frankie the cyborg and shifted towards being Frankie the carpenter. Right, like, he's sort of using the aesthetics and the archetypes and stereotypes of, like, Tokugawa era Japanese carpentry, which is a more interesting way to sort of recontextualize his character in that way. Like, he's a sort of Tokugawa era cyborg there, which, yeah, I don't have a strong hot take on Frankie is what I'm trying to get at. Let's see, Vaporspace. You said in your last Q&A you were hoping to get back to Elden Ring soon. I presume you haven't played any more. No, I have not. Have you managed to avoid spoilers? No. I have not tried to avoid spoilers, in part because I recognize that would not be possible. Like, no, I'm... No avoiding spoilers, I'm afraid, Vaporspace. That was never gonna happen. Like, Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, and Bloodborne, I could avoid spoilers. I can avoid spoilers for those games because nobody is, like, obsessively posting about every new thing that they find in those games right now. There aren't, like, multiple YouTube channels just cranking out, hey, look at this thing I found in Dark Souls 3 videos right now. It's stuff that you can reasonably avoid. Not everyone on my Twitter timeline is talking about those games all the time. Elden Ring, Sekiro, not so much. Like, no way to avoid spoilers for those games. And so I have not tried. And that's just the way it is. That's the way it's going to have to be. Do you think it'll impact your reading of things? Yes. Unavoidably. Like, knowing more gives me more information to work with, and it'll impact how I see things. That's just the way things are going to go. And that's why at the start of the Elden Ring episodes, the ones I've made so far, it doesn't say this is a blind run, don't post spoilers, because too late. Too late, frankly. Do you have any favorite movies, shows, Andrew Devil? Why are they your favorites and what makes them special to you? Favorite question. I'm sorry, I can't give you an answer to that. I don't know how to pick favorites. Everything is special for a different reason. Things are good for different reasons. They can't be compared. I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you take a thing and say, oh, this thing is better than that thing, because they're different. Like, the things I like are all different from each other. So I don't know. Would you ever do more in self-indulgent rankings, tier lists, anything you want? What would those rankings be? My tier list streams are generally popular. People generally tune in for them and seem to enjoy them a lot. And so because of that, I have been very careful about not doing them too often. Like, I space them out a lot. They're not like a weekly thing that I do every week or every month or something. Like, I try to space them out for something where I feel like, okay, here's a thing that's like worth, that'll lead to some interesting discussions, that'll like be interesting to talk about. I try not to do them just because. And insofar as I do self-indulgent ones, it'll be stuff like I did on my birthday with Star Guardians, where I ranked all of those skins because it was my birthday and I was sort of wanted to, and that was a self-indulgence. But I don't know what one of those rankings would be. I haven't thought about it much, so I don't know. Because, like, those, if I'm going to do a self-indulgent tier list stream, it's not just indulging myself in terms of I'm just going to talk about something only I give a shit about. I want to talk about something that the audience will be entertained to hear me talk about, that I also care about a lot, right? So it's not as simple as just I'll pick whatever the fuck I want and fuck you. So yeah. Any hot takes you've never gotten to express about the media you're most passionate about? No. Have you followed me on Twitter? No. I never shut the fuck up. Don't you, like, my hot takes are well expressed, my friend. Don't you worry about that. There's no, have you followed my Final Fantasy 14 streams? No. Don't you worry. My opinions are well expressed. OW, I gather you're following One Piece. Any such work that runs for so long is bound to see its readers change and grow. Has the way you look at or appreciate the series changed? Oh man, that's a really I was around for One Piece when it started, you know. Need a drink of water here. Like, I was a kid when One Piece started. I read, like, it came to Denmark a little bit later than it was published in Japan, obviously, but it came pretty early, like in the late 90s, I think. Early 2000s, something like that. And I have followed it for like over 20 years now. And it's, yeah, like, of course the way I've looked at and appreciated the series has changed. I've changed deeply as a like, I'm not at all the same person I was just 10 years ago or 15 or 20 years ago. So, like, it's, I guess the answer to your question is yes, but I would struggle to really express how or in what way. Because I don't really have a dispassionate viewpoint from which to see that or analyze that. Like, of course, One Piece meant something else to me when I was 10, you know, because it was, hey, cool pirate with stretchy powers, whee! He fights guys and looks cool, wow! And now I look at it and I see anti-fascist themes. I see, like, you know, I see a deep interest and commitment to the idea of like freedom. And like the ways in which institutional power corrupts. Like, it's like, yeah, of course, because I'm a different person. I know more, and so my relationship must change. So I don't really know how to give you a more specific answer than that, though. Manager Art, are you looking forward to new Pokemon and God of War that are coming out? Are you planning to do either of them for the second channel? Pokemon, definitely. Like, I'm definitely playing Pokemon and putting it on the Let's Play channel. Gonna be Violet, because I want a motorcycle. I don't want a thing that runs. So definitely playing those. Absolutely, 100%. God of War, I am more not sure about. I'm not sure. I really want to play it. I really do. I'm not sure and I kind of want to do it for content also, as a stream series. And I don't know, like, I don't know, like, because if I'm playing Pokemon, I might want to have Anna edit that so that we can sort of skip past grinding and shit, like get to the good parts. It sort of depends how it's an open world game, right? So there's going to be a lot of just running around and like, so I don't know. Like, I have not planned my content in that way. I know Pokemon for sure. God of War, I'm not sure how I'm going to handle. Because it's also a game that if I start playing it, I'm not going to be able to put it down, I don't think. Like, if I start playing it, it's going to be some marathon sessions. Like, I'm going to play it for 10 hours, then I'm going to play it for 10 hours, then I'm going to play it for 10 hours, and at that point, probably it'll be done. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know about those games. I'm a little not sure. Liv, as someone freshly into the franchise, you interested in Warhammer 40k at all? I think you'd appreciate the orcs. I assume you mean that you are freshly into the franchise, because I have known, like, I've engaged with Warhammer since I was a teenager, so I'm not freshly into the franchise. I think you'd appreciate the orcs. Yeah, because they're the last funny part of 40k. I do appreciate the orcs a lot. I enjoy any species whose whole thing is like, we just believe that our stupid ideas are good so hard that they become good. That's very funny. Second question, if that's allowed. What are your thoughts on Volcarona? I think I did. In a previous Q&A, I think I talked about Volcarona. Yeah, I think I did. So, and as I remember, it's like it's a bug Pokemon that is a butterfly, a caterpillar, and a cocoon all at once, which is like a cool idea. I don't know how it really but I don't have a strong hot take on it. I don't think it's that striking. I've never, like, I know that a lot of people are huge fans of Volcarona, but I just don't see what the fuss is. It's a cool looking Pokemon. It has a cool concept, but I I've never been excited by it, really, so, I don't know. Javarina, you considered playing Sekiro on the Let's Play channel without making a whole boss design series out of it? Because I know you don't feel competent to analyze the way you do the other Souls games. Yeah, you've hit on a thing that I've struggled with, because you're right. Right now, I definitely don't feel like I could play Sekiro for a boss design series, because it's so based on Japanese mythology, on Shintoism, on Buddhism, like specifically like Japanese cultural interpretations of those things, on Japanese folklore so much, and I am just not well-versed, there's my Danish accent, well-versed. I'm just not well-versed in those things enough. Like, because Souls games broadly, even Elden Ring, like, they're all broadly based on European, Western aesthetics, right? That's broadly where they draw their aesthetic inspiration from. They're still Japanese games, obviously, but I know the cultural references. Like, I know the semiotics of the things that are brought up. I don't know that for Sekiro. On the other hand, it's one of those things of like, well, maybe that would be a good research project. Like, maybe that would be a good way to challenge myself, to learn, like, to have to research and really learn and know about these goddamn characters and find out about them. And think about them and learn something about this culture and this way of, so maybe that would be cool for a boss design series anyway, just a more demanding one, maybe after I'm done with all the other Souls games, right? Like as a capstone, as the final game that I'm going to tackle, because it's the one that's most mechanically demanding, and it's the one that would be most demanding of me as like a cultural critic, as someone who like analyzes media. That's appealing to me. On the other hand, that's like 5 years from now, and I really fucking want to play the game. I really want. But if I'm gonna make a series out of it, I don't want to like go and play the game and get really good at it before. Like, I want people to have the opportunity to enjoy me failing over and over again, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I might be able to no longer be able to resist the temptation one day and just start playing it. Maybe that'll be a Let's Play series. Maybe it won't. But if I'm gonna make a boss design series out of it, I have to wait. Which is hard. And that seems to be all of them, I think. Yeah, there we go. That was all of the questions. So thank you to the people who sent those questions in. I hope you have enjoyed listening to me answer them. If you want to ask one, support the channel in any way, and you'll be able to do that if you wanna. And yeah, thank you all very much for watching. Thank you for hanging out with. Oh, that's the wrong thing. That's what I meant to do. Thank you for hanging out with me. And I'll see you next month, I guess.